What's going on, man? What are we doing? We back today. You know what I mean? Just trying to straighten out some things, get through a few kinks. You know, what's going on here? I got to get my Sharice and Pepper Bowl out of here. Down there. But how are we doing? Always a big shout out to the ones that make this possible, that help us out. Big shout out to all of the sponsors. Where is there a video? Yeah, but we're gonna talk about the Providence Cyclodrome. But first, let me bring you to, where is it? Let's get the sponsor video up here. Big shout out to all the people that help make this possible. If I could ever find it. Yo, here we go. We back. As you can see on the screen, we're going to talk about the Providence Cyclodrome. The Providence Cyclodrome. It was built like back in the 1920s. And it's basically considered, at the time, it was considered a state-of-the-art facility. It had like wooden tracks that kind of went up on an incline, like you can actually see right there on the screen. You know, this place was pretty famous, you know, when it came to sports. It was designed to hold about 13,000 people overall. And it made it the largest bicyclist track anywhere in the nation at the time. It was said that this stadium, you know, it was used for several purposes. You know, they had a bike track. You would play football there. You know, and nobody really knew what the theory was, why the track was 5 laps to a mile. And at the time, you had like 5 laps to a kilometer, as most tracks today might be. But back then, it was like 5 laps to a mile. This is a lot of history. I think this place was the site for Cranston West, Cranston East to have the most fans in the history of a football game. You know, and also the Steamrollers played here. But the Cyclodrome, it was an NFL stadium back in, it served for 7 seasons from 1925 to 1933. And the field was a very steep, it was inside a steep bank. And it cut sharply into the end zone, which is said reduced them to like 5 yards in depth. But during the games, they would bring in temporary seating. It was permitted on the straightaway portion of the track, which was so close to the field that the players, after being tackled, often found themselves in the stands. In 1930, floodlights were installed at the stadium for nighttime games, which made it a lot easier to actually see the game back then. The Providence Steamrollers actually played there. I think back in like 1915, 1916. Members of the Providence Journal actually had a lot to do with the Steamrollers. I think they actually were the owners of the team, the coaches of the team. I think the guy's name was, I got it written down over here somewhere. Oh, here it is. Charles Copin and part-time sports writer Pierce Johnson. There was actually the first team to play 4 regular season games in 6 days. That actually never been done. It was an NFL team. I think they even played the Green Bay Packers for the first Super Bowl. So imagine that, being the first team to play 4 regular season games inside of 6 days. They were also the first team to play a night game under the floodlights back in like 1929 at a different location than the Cyclodrome, though. But the Steamrollers became the first New England team to win the NFL championship back in 1928. See, a lot of people don't know that. See, Providence, Rhode Island, we had a team that had the first NFL championship. And I know this stadium was said to also be the site for the biggest high school football game in the state's history. Cranston East and Cranston West, I believe, played in this location. But it was definitely an exciting place in New England, right? Rhode Island, you had the racetrack, you had the horse track. It wasn't in Foxborough. It wasn't at the Boston Garden. It was right here in Providence, Rhode Island. At the time of some of the nation's best racing and football was just a short ride from downtown Providence. We're talking like back in the 1920s. The Cyclodrome was definitely an exciting place. There we go. It was definitely an exciting place. It could regularly pack in like 10,000 plus fans to watch professional cyclists, which was big back then, cheering on homegrown, amateur, and semi-pro games, or just to witness crush and hurley excitement by the football team, which was, basically Providence's own. Tuesdays and Fridays, you could barely stand in this joint. And they would definitely pack in on Sundays. 13,000 fans would pack like sardines to watch the Steamrollers over the visiting New York Giants. That's right, the Giants played there as well. But the Cyclodrome was one of sporting's world's hottest places to go and one of the city's brightest jewels. But today it's no longer there. The marker, it knows its place. Loyalties has moved north to Massachusetts, and now we have the Patriots leaving the city. Homegrown loyalties. But definitely check out the Cyclodrome. It was definitely one of Providence's lost stadiums. But since it was torn down years ago, well before Providence's big movement started, so there really is little known articles about the history of the Providence Cyclodrome. But one of the biggest challenges was tracking down some of the sources, the structures. I wonder how the atmosphere inside was. Like, we could never see that. There is no video that's going to show us that. There's some scrapbooks around of the Steamrollers back in its day. So we're going to reach out to the Rhode Island Historical Society, and see if we can find some of these great pictures. Local football historian Pierce Johnson also wrote extensively and self-published research. Many of his passing references from the Cyclodrome helped to reconstruct what atmosphere and playing conditions for the Steamrollers. Imagine what the Steamrollers was like inside that stadium. Let me see if I could get it a little, see if I could tune in. All right, here we go. They actually said right here, the end zone. See how they made it shorter? They made the end zone shorter right there over here. But this was the track that they would drive the bicycles around. Like I said earlier, this was also the scene for the biggest Rhode Island high school game in our state's history. Cranston West versus Cranston East. They really packed them in over there. But they used to have races every Friday at 8:15. You know, we'll talk more. Like, I want to tell you stories about McCoy Stadium. I actually have some nice stories about McCoy Stadium. But when this Cyclodrome opened back in 1925, it was really considered one of the state-of-the-art faculties. We had the horse track. This place was designed to hold 13,000 people, making it the largest bicycle track anywhere in the nation at the time. And some saying that it's the largest track anywhere in the world. I think on opening day, the stadium could only have like 9,000 people in there because there was construction delays due to heavy rain. So it pushed back the opening day. It pushed it back several days. I think they want to open Memorial Day weekend from what the research that I was reading. Imagine that, 10 cents. Sunday, September 20th. The Steamrollers. Here we go. They played the Green Bay Packers. Look at the starting lineup right here at the bottom of the screen. Like, this is all impressive. Very impressive, I think. Local history. And it might not interest a lot of people, you know, but I'm pretty impressed with a lot of local history from back in the day, especially from around the Rhode Island area. You know, we'll talk about McCoy Stadium. I'll even tell you how the Pittsburgh Steelers used to have summer camp right here in Rhode Island. That's right. But determining the length of the track has been somewhat difficult. A lot of people don't know if it was a 5-lap track. Means it took 5 laps to complete a mile. But that's what I understand it was. Like most tracks today, 5 laps is like a kilometer or some other distance, you know. And if you look at some cyclists at the Providence Bicycle Shop, tracks today are measured by kilometers. If this held true for 1925, a track that took 5 laps to complete 1 kilometer would be rather small by today's standards, but the size of the track drew a lot of attention by people. You know, a lot of people wanted to come here. Some called it the Mammoth Bowl. Another report, what else did they call it? They called it the Mammoth Bowl. And it would tell visiting cyclists taking practice laps around the track to acquaint themselves with the unfamiliar proportions. You know, so they would let you try it out and see how it is. And it was definitely hard because it did curve. But 5 lap size actually means that the distance were measured in miles rather than kilometers. Like we've been saying, opening day was described as a very exciting event for the city of Providence. One article said it was a big night on North Main Street. Here's some pictures that we're looking at. United Electric Railway, North Main Street. Notice the sign of the Cyclodrome entrance on the side of the building, and you could actually see it right here. And here's where you can get a better idea of where the track was. Here you have right here the Oneyville, the river. It connects to the Seekonk River, Pawtucket River. Here's the city of Pawtucket line. So the track was right here, and if I'm not mistaken, I believe it's where Shaw's is right now. Where Shaw's Plaza is, I believe that is where the Cyclodrome was located. So right here, if you could see up where my mouse is on the screen, this is where the Cyclodrome was located, and it's where the Shaw's Plaza is right now on North Main Street. We're going to get right back into this in 1 minute. I just want to thank the people that always help me make this possible. Definitely big shout out to Elite Football Schools. Look, you're looking for a camp August 18th, August 21st, elitefootballschool.com. Go check them out. And a quick disclaimer, the use of any copyrighted material is used under the guidelines of fair use in Title 17 and 107 of the United States Code, and such materials remain the copyright of the original holder and is used here for the purpose of education. That's all we're doing. Big shout out to the Lyman Challenge. Check that out July 30th, 40 Reservoir Road, Coventry, Rhode Island. And tomorrow, week 4, Breakthrough, 7v7, Summer Passing League. Going to be very excited. And if you need to get your butt back on the field faster, Recover Rhode Island on the corner of Knight and Washington Street. Hit them up on Instagram at Recover Rhode Island. So we'll get back into this right now. Back in the day, there was something I read here. It said it was a big night on North Main Street last night. The biggest the thoroughfare has seen in years. The Cyclodrome opened and it was bicycles racing, passing off floral tributes, band concerts, singing, excitement. And the mayor, Joseph Gaynor, hello, there's the baby. So the mayor, Joseph Gaynor, did not attend opening night ceremonies. His representative and the ardent fan, John O'Connell, did. One could all but hear the civic pride bursting from him and every other resident in attendance as he welcomed them to the biggest and finest bicycle track in the world. Imagine that. Providence, Rhode Island had the biggest bicycle track in the world. Let me tell you, baseball people, although his name was not used in connection with the Cyclodrome in a lot of the newspaper accounts, the owner of the building was Peter Laudati, a prominent real estate developer, and he actually owned the Cyclodrome. He built Providence's Kinsley Park, home of the Providence Grays baseball team back in the 1930s, and he was a big part in bringing Babe Ruth and Lou Gehrig to play the Expedition game at the park. He was also part owner of the Providence Steamrollers, who was an NFL franchise at the time. It was built right on the Providence River. Fans could reach the site by either side of the transit lines. There was also a fair amount of parking. The stadium was built such considerations only recently become something that the developer had plans for. And here we have it right there. You can actually see. My granddaughter just showed up at the studio, but yeah, a lot going on. So right here, the Cyclodrome, you know where it was now. This was a big part of our history in the city of Providence. And, a lot of people do not talk about this. And probably nobody is even interested in this stuff, but I definitely am. This was a big part of our history in Rhode Island. Bicyclists, they said, enjoyed the large audience in the Providence area. I mean, it says for the city's 250th anniversary in 1886, the Rhode Island chapter of the league, American Wheelman, staged a parade of 1,500 cyclists. And bicycling was getting very popular in the city of Providence, especially with a lot of new immigrants and other sports. They really packed in audiences. It was football. That's what it was. College football had long been a popular entertainment for the region. Even Brown even drew in a few fans. Imagine that, same like they do today. However, it seems to have perceived the potential of the sport to draw wider audiences and start actually making money on the growing interest in the sport. And a lot of people thought the Providence Steamrollers would have been great. And it's remembered today for the first professional football team in New England. Ha! And it was started back in 1916, and some sources contend that it was the first team anywhere to pay its players enough to be considered fully professional, at least during the season. In 1925, the National Football League granted franchise status to the Steamrollers, and that began a 7-year partnership between the team and the Cyclodrome. So the Steamrollers was able to help the Cyclodrome stay around a little bit longer. But it was not enough room for the 10-yard end zone, because each end zone, remember what I said, was cut off by the steep bank portion of the track at the turns. One end zone was 10 yards, but the other was only 5. So games, they definitely put people in the seats. Providence set an early NFL attendance record for 13,000 fans at the game against the Giants, which I said earlier. And every capacity crowd of 10,000 meant that the fans go so close to the field that the players were chased out of bounds. They would end up in the laps of the stands. But the Cyclodrome was a major improvement from the team's former home, Melrose Park. There, the field covered the site of a former file factory, and the metal shades still in the ground notoriously were more injurious than play itself. Another feature of the stadium is that there were no visiting locker rooms, and the home team had to use the small space where cyclists actually changed, and this really amounted to the size of like 2 phone booths. Players took turn changing in the small area, and Dick Reynolds had said with his history of the team noted that the space built to serve small, wiry chaps was hardly conducive to a football players are used to. Jim Kozelman, the coach, joked that the team sustained more injuries getting dressed than they did actually on the football field. The Steamrollers drew a lot of people at their games back in the 1920s. Some of the papers that are at the Rhode Island Historic Society from 1928 and minutes of NFL team owner meetings in Chicago. One game, they would bring in about $12,000 at the gate. And that was back in 1928. Imagine that. They would pay out of that $189 for advertising, $37 for bill posting, putting their ad out, and $4,518 to the opposing Philadelphia Yellow Jackets. And after players' salary were paid, you probably made about, I think, $3,800. Hey, that number sounds familiar, aka at another game on November 25th, he sold 11,987 tickets and made a profit of $4,600. Back in 1920, that was probably very, very well. They did so well, even in the worst years of the Depression. And they actually described him during the Depression as a millionaire in the newspaper. But the team would split its time between the 2 Providence area parks for a few years until it moved permanently into the Cyclodrome. And in 1928, the team became the last team not currently in the NFL to win a championship. So they're the last team to win a championship that's not in the NFL. These games played at Providence's Kinsley Park for a little while. They even To help players, the ball was even painted white, but the game was played. Still, the successful of this experiment, that's when they actually installed the floodlights back in 1930. But today, the Cyclodrome is remembered as the home. It ain't even remembered, actually. So hopefully this memory, go check out Kinsley Park. It's even dimmer now, but it seems that despite the drawback for players, the stadium was a very good facility for fans. There really was no bad seats in the house from what the paper said. I mean, it was a very tight place, but halftime entertainment. They had performances by Happy Stanley, nicknamed Mr. Banjo. And it was said it was the number one entertainer in the state. And it's not clear whether Stanley was a black or white man dressed in a black face, but he was called the Roller's Minstrel Boy. In 1956, an article describing the team, such entertainment was still a popular form, from the 1920s and 30s, especially for some of these urban immigrants that were a working class patron. We talked this like with the Rocky Point stuff, taking the trolleys, doing stuff. These factory workers loved to get their break and go on picnics and stuff. And the most popular song was a local hit written by Don Jackson. Slowly steamrollers roll faster across the go. For while the band is playing, stands a swaying. If you need to know more about the steamrollers, or if there's something that maybe I have left out, definitely let me know. I just wanted to go over some local history about the Providence Cyclodrome. Very, very exciting article. But the Great Depression took a great toll on Providence as a whole. And a lot of changes were not without effect. The fortunes of the Cyclodrome, the steamrollers folded in 1932. But some of the newspaper clippings indicated that bike and foot races continued at the Dome for several more years, but it just couldn't sustain. Wasn't really making profits. Did his interest in the stadium dwindle? In 1937, the site was finally knocked down and built one of the nation's first drive-in movie theaters. So it was one of the nation's first Cyclodrome, and now it became one of the nation's first drive-in movie theaters. Definitely very. And guess who was owned by? Lowe's Theater billed its location on North Main Street as the city of the Cyclodrome, invoking the mental map of the city's residents. It also retained a very, very lucrative site between Pawtucket and Providence. And once again, he proved himself a good businessman, able to read the recreational taste of the city. He brought back the bicycle track that was making money, and when they couldn't make no money, he took what is where Shaw's is right now, and it was a Cyclodrome, and then he made the drive-in movie theater, as you can see, kind of right in the background there, where all the rows were kind of curved, see, where all the cars can kind of park and watch the one screen. The first Cyclodrome race card tonight opened the new arena on North Main Street, and it expected to attract large crowds. Lighting effects were perfect. Programs can be heard from 30 miles away. Motor pace race featuring American champions ended up racing there as well. Cyclodrome ready for opening meet. Well-balanced program to be run off the show's schedule. 9,000 people. Another article said mayor of the city of Providence, city government at the Cyclodrome, first Cyclodrome race card. So much history went on at the Cyclodrome. And right outside the Cyclodrome, a lot of people might remember was the Duck Down Under Duck Pin Bowling Alley. Y'all remember that? But we'll probably talk about that also. There's a few other things that we'll be talking about soon. McCoy Stadium will be another one. But this was pretty good. This was great history about a place that Providence was the first NFL team. It's the last NFL team not in the NFL to win a championship. A lot of history in Providence that you really might not know about. And this was definitely one of them history lessons. But thank you. Appreciate everybody. Get out to that Lyman Challenge coming up. The Elite Football School. Go to elitefootballschool.com. July 18th to the 21st. Non-contact football camp. Learn from Rhode Island's most successful high school football coach, Keith Cruff. And if you're injured and you're looking to get back on the field faster, Recover Rhode Island. Go to Instagram at Recover Rhode Island. Check them out. They could definitely help you with your problems, get you back on the field a lot faster. And big shout out to Coach Dunbar, everything he has going on over there at Breakthrough 7 on 7. Mark Wright, Coldwell Banker, Coastal Homes. Thank you for all your support, everybody. Real appreciate it. Like the Cyclodrome, imagine that. It's where the Shores Plaza is right now. This guy brought the first, he made so many great business decisions at this location. But appreciate it, everybody. And this is what it's all about.
Get ready, it's coming. You hunting or you running? Get ready, get ready, get ready.
Promotion any illegal activities. All content provided by this channel is meant only for education.